The Phillies just officially cut ties with one of the most talented arms they've developed in years. And the Dodgers are the ones who picked up the pieces. Griff McGarry is gone, traded to Los Angeles for international bonus pool space and a player to be named later or cash. And while that return sounds like almost nothing, the real story here isn't the transaction itself. It's what this move tells us about the Phillies, the Dodgers, and a pitcher who had every single tool to be a legitimate big league arm, and still couldn't figure it out. Let me start with who Griff McGarry actually is, because if you've been following this Phillies organization over the last few years, this name hit differently when you saw it pop up on the trade wire. McGarry ranked as the number 3 prospect in the entire Phillies system heading into the 2023 season, according to MLB Pipeline. MLB, https, www.mlb.com, news, Phillies trade former prospect Griff McGarry to Dodgers, number 3. In a system that at the time included names like Mick Abel and Andrew Painter, that's not a fluke ranking. That's not someone being generous. That's based on real stuff, real projection, real belief that this guy was going to be a factor in Philadelphia's rotation or bullpen at some point, and the stuff backed it up completely. His fastball touched 99 miles per hour back in 2022. MLB, https, www.mlb.com, news, Phillies trade former prospect Griff McGarry to Dodgers, 99. That's not a soft-tossing finesse guy we're talking about. That's a power arm. That's the kind of velocity that makes scouts write up glowing reports and organizations put guys on the fast track through the system. He's long intrigued scouts with a fastball and slider that both grade as plus pitches and generate whiffs in droves. MLB trade rumors, https, www.mlbtraderumors.com, 2026, 04, Phillies, trade, Griff, McGarry, Dodgers, HTML. So we're talking about a 2-pitch combination at the top of the arsenal, where both pitches are legitimately above average by grading standards. That's a profile. That's a reliever who, in the right environment, could be a setup man or even a closer. You don't need 5 pitches to get big league hitters out if your fastball is sitting 96-98 and your slider is a swing and miss offering. That combination alone, if the rest of the equation was clean, would have made McGarry a viable major league arm years ago. The problem was, the rest of the equation was never clean. McGarry's command is nowhere close to average. The most recent scouting reports on him at Fangraphs, Baseball America, MLB.com, and other outlets peg him with 30-grade command on the 20/80 scale. MLB trade rumors, https, 30. Think about what that means. On a scale where 50 is average, 30 is significantly below. That's not just a guy who struggles to locate his fastball on the corners. That's a guy whose inability to throw consistent strikes is a fundamental issue that has persisted across multiple organizations, multiple levels, and multiple years of professional baseball. And that's the cruel thing about this whole story. The arm was always there. The raw ability was never in question. But you can have the best stuff in the world and still not be able to get guys out if you can't throw it where you want to throw it. His control is McGarry's biggest weakness, which has been worsened by his stuff regressing over the years. Heavy Sports, https, heavy.com, Sports, MLB, Philadelphia Phillies, Philadelphia Phillies trade Griff McGarry Dodgers. And that's where you start to understand why the Phillies finally moved on. Because it's one thing to have a command problem when you're still developing your stuff. It's another thing when your velocity and your pitch quality are both trending in the wrong direction at the same time your walk rate stays elevated. That's a compounding problem. That's 2 issues feeding off each other rather than one isolated flaw that can be corrected with mechanical adjustments. Look at what 2026 looked like for McGarry before this trade happened. McGarry this year in Triple-A Lehigh Valley allowed 4 runs in 4 innings in 5 games, with 7 strikeouts and 4 walks. 7 strikeouts, so the swing and miss is still there. He's still missing bats. But 4 walks in 4 innings at Triple-A, that's a 9.0 ERA, and the walks are the reason why. You cannot sustain any kind of success at any level when you're putting runners on base at that rate. The strikeouts become almost irrelevant if you're giving away free passes constantly, because even when you do get a strikeout, it might come with a runner already on second base after back-to-back walks. The sequencing falls apart, the damage accumulates. Now here's the part that makes this whole saga even more complicated. McGarry didn't just struggle and fade into obscurity quietly. His path out of the organization was genuinely bizarre. McGarry was a Rule 5 draft pick by the Washington Nationals in December, but was returned to the Phillies on March 24th, the day before opening day rosters were finalized. Let that sink in. The Phillies didn't protect him on the 40-man roster. They left him exposed. The Nationals decided he was worth taking a flyer on in the Rule 5 draft, which means they believed he had enough upside to keep on their major league roster all year or offer back. But then he didn't make their club out of spring training, and they sent him right back to Philadelphia. All of that in the span of about 3 months. Drafted away in December, returned in late March, traded again in April. That's a lot of movement for one player in a very short window. He struck out 6 and walked 5 while allowing 2 runs in 5 2/3 innings over 6 Grapefruit League outings with Washington. Even in his final audition with the Nationals, he couldn't clean up the walk rate enough to earn a spot. And once he was back with Philadelphia, the writing was on the wall. The Phillies tried him in the bullpen at Lehigh Valley, which should theoretically simplify a pitcher's job, right? Shorter outings, max effort, lean on your best stuff. But even that adjustment didn't produce better control, and within a few weeks, he was being shipped to Los Angeles. Let's talk about what the Dodgers are actually getting here and why this move makes sense from their perspective. It makes sense why he slipped further and further down the Phillies' rankings after 2023. He was initially a fast riser, getting all the way to AAA in just his second professional season, but he posted a 9.00 ERA in 8 innings there that season and couldn't find his footing between injuries, rehab stints, and trips to the development list. So the Dodgers are fully aware of the history. They're not walking into this blind. They've seen the scouting reports. They've seen the stat lines. They know exactly what the command grades look like. But here's what makes Los Angeles different from almost every other organization in baseball when it comes to this kind of acquisition. We all know that the Dodgers have a knack for rediscovering potential and excavating it, and they've done more with less. That's not hype. That's a demonstrated track record. The Dodgers have taken pitchers who were cast aside by other organizations and turned them into functional big league contributors with enough regularity that it qualifies as an actual organizational skill at this point. They have pitching infrastructure, they have analytical tools, they have developmental coaches who specialize in exactly this kind of reclamation work. And importantly, McGarry wasn't on Philadelphia's 40-man roster, so he won't need to be added to LA's and can head straight to AAA instead. There's no roster crunch. There's no pressure to rush him. They can work with him at AAA Oklahoma City on his own timeline. There's potential for a big relief arm in the plausible range of outcomes, even if it's on the low-probability end of the spectrum, and it didn't cost the Dodgers much to roll the dice on the soon-to-be 27-year-old righty. That's the calculation right there. Low cost, low probability, but real upside if the command ever comes together. And the Dodgers have shown they're willing to make those kinds of bets consistently, because even if 9 out of 10 of them don't pan out, the one that does can be a legitimate impact arm. Now, from the Phillies' standpoint, you have to understand what they're getting out of this. The amount of the international bonus pool space sent to the Phillies is reportedly $500,000. Phillies. And while that sounds like nothing, there's context here. The Phillies spent about $485 million on the international free agent period, with a hefty $4 million of that going to Venezuelan outfielder Francisco Renteria. So they've already made significant international commitments this cycle. Getting $500,000 in additional pool space back means they have flexibility to pursue more talent internationally. And this isn't the first time these two organizations have done this exact kind of deal. Last season, Philadelphia acquired outfield prospect Dylan Campbell from Los Angeles in exchange for international pool money, which helped the Dodgers eventually land top Japanese prospect Roki Sasaki. There's a relationship here. There's a comfort level between these front offices when it comes to swapping pool space and minor league pieces. It's not glamorous, but it's how organizations operate efficiently at the margins. There's also the broader context of where the Phillies are right now as a team. With star pitcher Zack Wheeler having yet to see the mound in 2026 because of a shoulder surgery, Phillies fans are holding out hope for a return that could hopefully flip their season upside down. Wheeler is the centerpiece of this entire rotation, and he's been on a rehab timeline that's had everyone holding their breath. The plan is for Wheeler to throw 75 to 80 pitches in his next rehab start, which Thompson said ideally would cover about 6 up. And Wheeler is also lined up to pitch again on Sunday the 19th, as previously reported. But Thompson left the door open for one more rehab start after that if needed. Thompson said, "There's still time for one more after that. It depends on how he feels and how he feels about his stuff."